Yes, I had a profound near-death experience, profound spiritual transformation, like many of you. And I wrote a couple of best-selling books, and I've been on all kinds of talk shows and all sorts of things. Because an experience is only valuable if it has the power to provoke thought, provoke change, growth, especially if it pushes you in the direction of spiritual transformation and love. I did what most smart, intelligent, accomplished people do. I said, okay, that spiritual stuff, that's not for me. I mean, I fully subscribe to the religion of the intellect. And I was probably somewhere between a humanist and a rationalist. But regardless, I absolutely accepted this false choice that we're asked to make, which is you either believe in science or you believe in spirituality. I said, oh, count me in with the science. The hillsides are very, very steep. They're very thickly covered in bamboo. The section of river was entirely inaccessible and entirely requiring of a complete commitment. Once you put on the river, you were going downstream no matter what. I rocketed down the waterfall. The front end of my boat became pinned or stuck in the rocks and the underwater features, and the boat and I were then completely submerged under 8 to 10 feet of water. And I'm a spine surgeon. I don't know that I welcome high-stress situations, but I'm certainly very comfortable with them. And so I didn't panic. Everyone always says, oh my gosh, didn't you panic? And no, I'm not really a panicky sort of person, but I did go about trying to free the boat, trying to free me from the boat. It was evident that that was not going to work. And I am a very pragmatic, concrete thinking person. I assumed that I was going to die. I knew that the likelihood of being rescued was slim at best, probably zero. I've seen people die on the river. And I thought about my options, which weren't very many, but I made a decision to very actively ask that God's will be done. Whatever you want to call God, whoever God is to you. And I will tell you, at that point in my life, when I thought about God, it was like, I don't know. When I thought about death, it was, I don't know. I hope there's something more. I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me. In that moment, though, I said, okay, I ask that your will be done regardless of what that means. The moment I asked that, everything shifted. I was immediately being held and comforted and reassured by Christ that everything was fine. I'd be fine, my husband would be fine, my little children that I showed you would be fine, regardless of whether I lived or died. And I have to say, I was sort of, wow, this is a pretty good hallucination. It's not really what I expected, but I went with it. I had this shift in time and dimension so that I felt like every moment expanded into all of eternity. And similarly, all of eternity was contained within each one of those moments that I was underwater. And one of the things we did is go through a life review. And I have to tell you, again, I never really thought about it. If someone had asked me about a life review, I would have assumed it was the Hollywood version. You know, your life flashes across the sky and, you know, you feel really good about some things. You kind of pat yourself on the back, and some things you think, I could have done that better. And I would have imagined, you know, the bright light tunnel. I mean, all those things that we see in the movies. But my life review was nothing that I could have imagined. It was everything about love and nothing about judgment, which is really, you know, what we're all afraid of. We all blow it. But it had nothing to do with that. We sort of looked at all the events of my life, sort of like swiping left to right on an iPhone, going through the photos, and Christ would sort of pull out one of those events. And I have to tell you, none of these events were good ones. every event that went by were the most painful, the most traumatic, the most hurtful, the most miserable experiences of my life. And we all have those experiences, right? Every single one. And every single one he pulled out was really miserable. And there were events where either I hurt someone I loved, or someone hurt me, or deeply hurt someone else that I loved. And I would find myself immediately back in that experience. And it wasn't just that I re-experienced that event or re-experienced it from my perspective, but I understood me in that situation, and I had an absolute understanding of the other people involved in every event. And it wasn't just understanding their perspective. I understood them. I understood everything about their life story, everything about what brought them to that point in time where they hurt me, or I hurt them, or they hurt someone I loved. It's not a matter of forgiveness. It's a matter of grace. Anger, resentment, shame, all of that is replaced by incredible compassion and love and kindness. You know, just as an aside, an example. 2 weeks ago, I was on an airplane, and it's a long, involved story. I was making multiple connections, and the first step of this travel log was on this little plane. It had already been delayed an hour. I was just barely going to make my connection, and I was on my way home, so I really wanted to make that connection. And we loaded on the plane, and we weren't taking off, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding. I want to get home. And then there was this kid screaming, and finally the kid gets brought up to the front of the plane, and the parents want off the plane. And you can imagine everyone on the plane was rather upset. So they brought the jetway back out. Kid and the two parents got off, and then of course they had to wait because the stroller and everything else had been gate checked, so we had to wait. And so they pull the jetway away, or they start to. And then I'm looking at my watch and I'm going, okay, I'm definitely going to miss my connection, but if I stay here in this airport, I can get the next flight. So I go up to the front and I say, wow, I got to get off this plane. So you can imagine what people were thinking about me too, but at least I was a little quicker. So they bring the jetway back, I get off. As I'm out there, I see the parents and this kid. And I will admit, I was a little upset, but there were other people who were really quite cruel. When they were getting off the plane, there were a number of people who made comments that were really pretty biting. And I ended up chatting with these parents, and as it turns out, this kid was a foster kid and had been pulled out of this human trafficking ring in the Eastern Bloc in Romania. And every time the kid was taken to a new abusive situation, he was put on a plane. And for this kid, being put on a plane meant going further into the depths of misery. And so he absolutely refused to fly on the plane. Now, in hearing that, how can you be upset, right? All of a sudden, your irritation because you're not making your schedule is replaced with incredible compassion and love, not only for this boy, but for the parents. And so then my body finally broke free from the boat, and as that happened, my spirit had been kind of peeling away from my body, and I rose up and out of the water, and I was free. I was absolutely free, and I was immediately greeted by a group of, I don't know what, people, spirits, beings. For me, they had physical form, somewhat three-dimensional, head, arms, legs, wearing these incredible robes and really just obviously radiant from within. Not like there was a sun or bright light shining, but from within. And it was as though these robes were, I don't know, woven together with fibers of love. We'd get a little bit further down the path, and I could still look back at the scenes at the river. I could see my body. I thought, ooh, that doesn't look so good. I mean, I was purple and bloated and fixed dilated pupils. I mean, I was dead as a doornail. I'd been underwater for 30 minutes at that point. Being kind, being respectful, being tolerant of others. You know, I think that's what it comes down to.